starting with the introduction to UI UX. So to begin with, we need to understand what websites are and what web applications are so that you know exactly. Of course, we're going to be going to UI UX, but you need to understand a few terms and a few technical details before we go there. Okay, so to start off with, I'm going to be talking about what a website is versus what an application is. Now, of course, there are a lot of technical details when it comes to all of these things. Of course, a lot of you guys are engineers. I myself am a computer engineer. You will know that there are a lot of technical details behind what a website is and what an application is. But I'm going to be simplifying it for you guys today so that you don't spend too much time in these details. You go on to what we're actually trying to learn today. So the best way to understand what a website is in all of this context is think of it as a brochure online. Okay, so you have a business. You want to tell people what your business is about. You will use a website to list all of your data, make it a little bit interactive, and just let them know exactly what it is about. Now, of course, a website is a collection of web pages, and each of these pages, you can look at them as, pages in a brochure. This is the Growth Gravy website, our company website. On the screen right now, you can actually go and check out the Growth Gravy website when you're done with this webinar. Have a look at it and see exactly how we've designed it. So that is the basic way. So websites, you can look at them as just like an online brochure. Now, a desktop application or an application in general does not just store and show data, it also processes data. There is function associated with it. What I'm trying to say is maybe there's a part where you can calculate, add to numbers, subtract to numbers. And of course, you use apps like Instagram, you can post an image. There is a lot of function attached to applications. So it's as simple as that, all right? So this is the main distinction that you guys need to know when we talk about websites and applications. Now, this is a very important topic. A lot of you guys, if you're again engineers, if you guys are developers, you will know what a front end is and you will know what back end is. But I'm going to be showing this and exploring this topic for you guys who are not aware of it. Now, when we look at a system, when we look at a computer system, we look at it as a whole. Okay, we look at it as a whole. We don't know exactly what the system is made up of. Of course, there are a lot of there is a lot that goes into a typical system. There is a lot that goes into a typical system. And you can look at the whole organization of a system, of course, but the basic way to understand it is there is a lot of processing going on. There is a part of the system which you interact with. There's a part of the system that does all the processing. So of course, I'm not going to be going into these technical details. It's not required. Remember what you see on the screen right now, and that is it. The front end is what a user sees and uses. The BDS is what happens behind the scenes, is what we can look at as the back end. Okay, so again, guys, remember that this is me really simplifying this topic. There is a lot that defines your front end and your back end, but what a user sees and uses is the front end. And in UI UX design, what you're actually going to be working with is the front end most of the time. Okay, in fact, all of the time, a UI UX designer works with the front end of a system. So yeah, now we're going to be talking about the user journey. The user journey is very, very, very important when it comes to understanding what to design in a system. So let me take an example for you guys right now. Now, suppose you are going to a bank to apply for a loan. What you're seeing on the screen right now is the typical flow when it comes to the whole process of applying for a loan. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be traveling to a branch. You're going to be meeting with a representative over there. You're going to discuss the terms of the loan. You're going to sign into a few forms. You're going to fill up your details. You're going to give an address proof, or all things like that. Then you're going to be waiting to receive your decision, whether your loan has been approved or not. So if you're at home, whether you're going to be waiting there, sometimes it's that fast that you might be able to sit there and have your whole loan application processed. But of course, once you're done, you either have to again go meet the person, or if you're there, you just have to spend some time and go there. And then finally, you receive your funds. So guys, this is a very huge customer journey. In the user journey, you are responsible for studying this whole process, trying to understand what your user goes through and converting that into a digital system. It's as simple as that. So now this whole process that we saw on top is now condensed into a simple system where you just apply via your mobile phone and then you get your funds approved, and you receive them instantly. Now, there were weeks in the whole process, but if you're doing it digitally, it's going to be within minutes, because all of the processes are automated. And plus, you can do it again from your phone. You don't have to travel to the bank and come back home, and then again travel to the bank and then come back home. Guys, the user journey is essential when it comes to UI UX design. So because you understand what the user journey is, and then you optimize it and make it as simple as possible for your user to do what you want them to do. Okay. Now, in this whole experience, again, what we would make in the system is the person would have to log in, then they would select a button from the home screen for the loan application inside your banking app, and then they would fill a form, and then they would upload the documents, they would submit the application, and then they will get a notification when it's processing. Guys, this is what you design as a UI UX designer. This is what you create. You create this whole experience. You design what the system looks like, and you create the whole user experience. Okay. So guys, the next thing that we're going to be learning is responsive design. The concept of responsive design, which is very, very important when it comes to UI UX design in general. Okay. So you need to understand that before responsive design was popular, there was a very interesting traditional approach to designing a website in general. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to actually ask you guys a question. Have you designed your own website? Have you ever designed your own website? Let me know in the chat box if you have designed your own website. Okay. Yeah. So guys, you need to understand that way back when a website, when the whole smartphone era came up in general, and people were designing for mobiles in the for the first time, there was a very different approach to designing websites. There would be a desktop version of the website, and then there would be a special mobile version of the website, which was completely optimized for your phone. Of course, you can look at the example on the screen, a Domino's.com website. It's very small, the text is very small, it's very difficult to read on a phone. And of course, the one on the right is much easier to use with your fingers. You can tap on the buttons, you can do a lot over there. This right here is how old websites used to be created across desktop and mobile. Now, as I said, there was a different version for the desktop and the mobile. But when responsive design came around, this whole concept was flipped on its face, because you need to understand that when computer systems really hit their prime, or websites, really, the whole online tech world really hit its prime, there were many, many different devices you could design for. Now you have big screens, you have laptop screens, you have iPads, you have tablets, you have phones which range from 4 inches to 8 inches. My phone is probably 6.6 inches or something like that. You need to understand that there are so many different screens. So are you going to actually go ahead and design for each one of these? Are you going to be designing for the 100 different devices that exist? No, you're not. That is not an efficient way to do things. So the whole concept of responsive design is simple. You make one website. You just make one website, and then you define rules on how this website behaves across different devices. So I have a beautiful example by Vadim Gromov from Behance, which is going to illustrate this for you. So you can see how the different, how the same website functions across different screens. If you notice, it is all the same elements, but the way they get resized when you go from smaller screens to bigger screens. This is the concept behind responsive design. It's the same thing whenever you're designing for any website which is responsive. Look at the graphic that I have on the screen right now. So you set certain rules. All of the data will always be there, but it will keep resizing and keep moving around. So this is very important when it comes to, just designing all of this in general for a system, your UI UX design. Yeah. So guys, one very important thing you need to note when it comes to responsive design is there are very typical device sizes that you need to keep in mind. Now, of course, there are thousands of different device sizes, but to keep it a little bit easier to design, there are a lot of front-end frameworks that let you define very specific 5 sizes which you can then design for. So the most popular device sizes that you can design for are XS, which is extra small, then SM, which is small, MD stands for medium, LG stands for large, and XL stands for extra large. Now you can see what kinds of devices these correspond to. So XS is a very small phone screen. Your SM is your landscape mobile if it's the same phone. Then of course tablets and portrait tablets, landscape tablets, and laptops and desktops function under XL. The main takeaway from all of this is you design one website which is responsive across many different devices. Okay, it is as simple as that. You need to make sure that what you're doing is responsive across multiple devices. So now what I'm going to be doing is giving you guys an intro into all of the tools that you use in UI UX. Okay, there are many tools that you use in UI UX. Now there are many tools that you can use to design your screens, but of course there are also many different kinds of tools you can use to prototype. There are many different kinds of things you can do to just show the user journey in general. There's a lot of things you can do when it comes to all of these different tools. So what I'm going to be talking about right now are 4 very popular UI UX design tools. These are very popular UI UX design tools that most people tend to use when it comes to designing these applications. Now, each and every one of these have their very specific use case. Okay, each and every one of these have their very specific use case. You need to understand which one works for you so that you choose the one that's most appropriate. Now, Adobe XD is a very popular UI UX tool. It is, of course, from the Adobe suite of products, which means that you're going to get a lot of cross app integration. That means you can design something cool in Adobe Illustrator, take that design and then pull it into Adobe XD. Now, Figma is a very popular online UI design tool. Okay, a very popular online UI design tool. It is just amazing the power of this tool that you can use online. This amazing tool where you can go ahead and even share your prototypes in general with someone once you're done with all of that. It's just an amazing tool that you guys should check out if you're going to be working remotely. Now, Sketch is actually where it all started. Sketch was the first formal UI design tool which was available for Mac OS. Now, Adobe Photoshop is not strictly speaking a UI UX tool, but before it became a very formal field in general, before UI UX became a very formal field in general, it was something that you could go ahead and design in. And why I'm telling you about this very specific example of Photoshop as a UI design tool is because you can find a lot of templates online even today. Since Photoshop has been around for a long time, you can find a lot of different templates where people have designed. You can take it into Photoshop, get a lot of inspiration for your UI UX projects. It's very useful to have Photoshop always installed on your system when you're doing UI UX in general, because you can do a lot with it. Okay, you can do a lot with it. So yeah, so I am going to be going ahead and now showing you a quick intro into Adobe XD. Now, since we are live right now, what I want to do is not really show you the app live because there might be a few lags here and there. So I'm going to quickly show you a beautiful video by someone called Exopixel, who is just an amazing tutor in general. So what I want to show you guys in general is the first step to creating an amazing UI design inside XD is to go ahead and create your artboard. Okay, so as you can see over here, so guys, by the way, if you guys can see what I'm showing, please send across some nice messages in the chat box and let me know if you guys are able to see what I'm showing you right now. Okay, shout out to Exopixel, by the way, for just killing it with this amazing tutorial. We will of course be sending you an amazing freebie that you guys will be able to use. It's the awesome UI kit, and as I said earlier, you're going to get access to that if you've gone ahead and posted that Instagram story. But don't post that story right now. I'm going to tell you when you'll be able to post that story to get access to that. All right, so the first thing you need to do is create your artboard inside XD. As you can see over here, you have a lot of options now. If you're designing for the mobile phone, you have a few options. If you're designing for a laptop screen, desktop screen, you have a lot of options. So that's what you need to go ahead and select first of all right? So now this is what your whole interface inside Adobe XD looks like. It's a pretty simple app. It's something that if you've used Adobe products before, it's something that you can really, go ahead and get started with very easily. So This is your artboard. Your artboard is where your UI design begins. You need to define the size of your screens. Now, if you're going to be designing for a mobile screen, you have to design in 1920, 1080 vertical, which is very popular. And of course, quad HD, all of these standards are things that you can do. So the concept is pretty simple. Inside Adobe XD, you have all sorts of shapes that you can create. There are different panels that you can explore right here. You can create shapes, you can create buttons, you can create layouts. So this example right here is of him actually, playing around with a few different shapes. It is important to open up the app and just get familiar with all of the tools. As you can see, what he's doing is showing you how, if you link different objects together, how they all change. All right, so yeah, let me go ahead and tell you now the prototype workspace. Now, the prototype workspace is awesome because you can show a prototype of your app. So now what you can see is we are linking different artboards together and we're putting a sort of transition between them. Okay. Now, when you're showing someone a prototype, your prototype has to be very clear about what the app is. It should look like the actual app once it's developed. So when you can see on the screen is we're defining a few rules, and as you can see, the screen is moving back and forth over there. When you click on something, you can do a lot. Now, the next most important thing is sharing your prototype online. Sharing your prototype is very essential because once you have done your app design, you need to show it to your client. Now, the cool thing about Adobe XD is once you sign up for a free account, you can actually share it to your Adobe XD, your Creative Cloud account online. And now, what you're seeing on the screen right here is what your client would see online. They don't have to download the app. They can click on your app and they can interact with it. They can click on the buttons and they can see, what the app is going to look like. All right. So yeah, there is a lot that you can do inside Adobe XD in general. It's important to go through all of the 3 steps in general. All right. Design your Adobe XD project, then prototype it, and then share it with your client. Okay, so it's really as simple as that. It really is as simple as that. So guys, that was a quick glimpse into Adobe XD. So now what I'm going to be showing you is some essential design principles and the Gestalt principles, which are absolutely essential to UI design. All right, so I'm going to so guys, do you have any questions till we have reached this point? We've explored 3 major topics: the introduction to UI UX journey, your responsive design concepts, and of course an intro to the tools used in UI UX. I'm going to take a quick minute. You guys can send across your messages, ask me any questions you have at this point, then we're going to be going ahead with step 4. Okay. All right. So yeah, so I'm getting a few questions that I'm going to address right now. So someone has asked me, is there any major difference between Adobe XD and Figma? Guys, the major difference, of course, is Adobe XD is an offline app which you can use on your system. Figma is an online tool. You have to use it through your browser. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to either thing. When you're using Adobe XD, you will get better performance because it is processed on your system. And if you're using Figma online, of course, in some cases, your internet connection may not be fast enough to use it well. But of course, Adobe XD to publish is a little bit more difficult than Figma. It's easier to just take a link from Figma, share it with the client as soon as you're done. And of course, the advantage again is you don't have to install Adobe XD. You can use Figma from any device. So it all depends on you, to be honest, what your use cases, how you function, how you work, all of that. Okay. So Deepti asks us, can you explain some rules for responsive with different devices? So when you come to rules, it really depends on your very specific website design or a very specific app design. Your rules need to be set in such a way that what you are doing is what your app is doing is put out right there. It's very easy to use your specific app. Let me give you a quick example of what this is. Now, suppose you're making a calculator app, okay? A very simple example of a calculator app. Now, on the phone, obviously, if you have your 9 number buttons, it should be accessible with your thumb. You should be able to click all of the buttons with your thumb. Now, when you then take this calculator app to your big screen, you don't need to make your buttons as big as your screen, because when you move your mouse around, now you're going to have to move your mouse around quite a bit on your screen if your 9 buttons are split all across the screen. So you can make them smaller on a desktop. but of course on your phone. So this is what you need to keep in mind when it comes to designing. Okay, this is what you have to keep in mind when it comes to designing for different screens. Okay, so guys, I'm going to just be taking 4 or 5 more questions before we go ahead to design principles and gestalt principles. Remember that we have a lot of amazing offers towards the end of this webinar, which you guys will get access to, but only if you stick around towards the end of the webinar. Okay, and we have that live Q&A session where you can ask as many questions as you want to. Okay, so someone has asked us, how do we make XD designs responsive? The cool thing is Adobe XD actually has a responsive design function where you create an artboard, you define the rules of how it resizes, and it's as simple as that. Now, Drumil has asked us, how can I get Adobe XD for free? Drumil, just go onto the Adobe website and download it. It is free, you don't have to pay for it like Photoshop and other tools. Adobe XD is absolutely free. So Pragati has asked us, does UI UX need coding as a mandatory factor? So Pragati, you do not need to know coding to be a UI UX designer. You don't. But let me also mention that even if you know the basics of how code functions, how a system functions, it is very advantageous to you. You will know how systems work. You will know how systems are created. You can be more useful as a UI UX designer. But as a baseline, you do not need to know coding to be able to do UI UX design. Okay. So Jatin has asked us, I am learning full stack development, so should I give time to UI UX? So Jatin, I have also done full stack development in the past. What I recommend is, if you enjoy the front end development of it more, I would recommend you take up UI UX and give it importance. But if you are someone who's going to be using, front end frameworks and then just design your back end, it depends on what you value. If you're going to be focusing on your front end, you should give UI UX importance. If you're not, you can just give it off. You can freelance with your UI UX work. Someone else can come in and help you. You can use pre-made templates, but of course it all depends on what you want to do. All right. So guys, right now I am going to be going ahead and starting with topic 4. Are you guys excited for topic 4? Do you want to know what design principles and gestalt principles are? If you are, drop a BIO, which stands for bring it on, into the chat box and let me know that you guys are in fact excited for this. Okay, we have some amazing topics coming your way, and I really want you guys to be able to pick up all of these really well. So the first thing is, I'm going to be exploring gestalt principles. Now, gestalt principles are design principles that apply very specifically to UI UX design. So the first gestalt principle I want to explain to you guys is how when items are closely related, when items are closely spaced, people perceive them as related. Even if they're the same item, if they're close to each other, you tend to perceive them as related. So a beautiful example of this is in fact our Growth Gravy website. Now this is the Our Team section on our website. When you go ahead and you look at the menu on top, you will notice that the fact that they're all next to each other will tell you that they are menu items that you can click on each and every one of these. Now imagine if home, all services, team was there and then the other 3 menu items were at the bottom. You would get a little confused about what they are. But the fact that they're all together and they are closely spaced means that the function is similar. Let me again tell you that when items are closely spaced, they are perceived as related. Okay, that is the whole concept behind the gestalt principle here that we've explored. And again, the case study is our Growth Gravy website in itself, where all of the menu items are very closely spaced. So guys, the next thing I want to talk about is the gestalt principle, where if items are similar, then they perceived as related. Now, as you can see on the graphic on the screen right now, different kinds of shapes on the left, you don't really think that they're related, but on the right, the triangles all feel related, the circles all feel related. So another beautiful example of this is again our Growth Gravy website, where if you scroll down to the services section, you will notice that by the way, we do a bunch of different things. We even do live event coverage, content production, creative visuals, and of course, web development. Notice the structure of this section. It starts off with a graphic, and then there is text below it, and then there are items below that text. What we're trying to say is these are similar designs, so you feel like they're related. They're on the same tier. These are services, and then below that, those are titles, and then below that, those are sub-services. So what you are understanding is, because of how it's arranged, you tend to perceive this as related, and you tend to, because of the colors and because of the shapes, because of the same fonts, you feel like they're related. Okay, now we're going to be going on to some design principles that are really, really important when it comes to UI UX design. So guys, are you enjoying the session so far? Are you enjoying everything that you learned so far? Are you excited to learn some design principles? Let me know in the chat box right now. All right. So let me go ahead. I'm getting a nice set of messages over there. It's nice that you guys are excited and learning from today's session. Guys, are you enjoying today's session? If you're enjoying today's session, let me know in the chat box. Send across messages and let me know in the chat box that tell me what is the favorite thing that you learned today. Okay, what is something that you're going to be going ahead and using once you're done with this masterclass? All right, so a lot of you guys are excited for me to go on to design principles. That is exactly what I'm going to be doing right now. So before we go ahead to our first design principle, what I want to tell you guys is why we need to learn design principles. Guys, you need to understand that not everyone is an artist by birth, not everyone is a designer, a visual person by birth. That does not mean you cannot have a career in the design world, in the UI UX world. While design is very intuitive for some people, it is something that a lot of people can pick up with a lot of discipline and practice. Okay, so there are principles like these, if you learn, that can really help you in your whole UI UX journey. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is white space. Now, white space is not the lack of a design element, it is a design element in itself. A beautiful one at that. So the best example of white space is the Google homepage. Guys, if you've ever, there's no point even asking if you've ever used Google search. Everyone uses Google search. If you've ever gone to the website before it became popular on your phones, as the app, that the default search engine, for the longest time, Google was the only website using so much white space. The function of searching is confined to the center of the screen. Google is written right up, and then there's a Google search button, and there's nothing else. There is nothing else around. The white space all around gives you focus on the center of the screen. This right here is a beautiful example of how white space is used. So guys, the next thing I want to talk is, of course, I've told you guys what white space is, okay? But you need to understand that there are different types of spaces. There is negative space, there is positive space. So now the concept that I'm showing you guys is negative space inside one of the most popular companies in the world, FedEx. Now, FedEx is all about deliveries, express deliveries. You guys have heard about FedEx, I'm sure. Have you ever noticed this section right here? It's an arrow between the letters E and X. Guys, this is not by accident. This is a very conscious design decision. FedEx is an amazing company. The whole concept of, speed and the whole concept of express delivery is really brought out in the arrow there. Subconsciously, even if you've never seen the arrow, you have associated the feeling of speed with the FedEx logo. And that arrow is the reason why. Guys, if you're figuring this out for the first time, if you're seeing this arrow for the first time, drop a nice wow into the chat box. Let me know that this is something that you guys find really interesting, if you find this fact interesting, okay? So now, let me go ahead and talk to you guys about something that is really important when it comes to UI UX design. Now, before I tell you what that is, I want to tell you guys about the 3 most used phrases in the world. Now, I need you guys' help on this, okay? The first most used phrase in the world is hello, and the second most used phrase in the world is okay. Guys, can you tell me what you think the third most used phrase in the world is? Can you let me know in the chat box what do you think the third most used phrase in the world is? All right. So a lot of guesses coming around. The third most used phrase in the world is in fact Coca-Cola. Now, if you guys didn't realize this, if this is something you are figuring out for the first time, let me drop a wow into the chat box and let me know that you are surprised by this fact, okay? Coca-Cola is an amazing example of branding. If you use branding really well, you guys can understand that People remember your brand much better. They prefer your products and your services instead of your competitors. You need to understand that well-presented branding can actually increase your company's revenue by up to 33%. Just by sorting out your branding, you can go ahead and, make your brand more memorable. You can make your services and your products more memorable so that people start preferring your products and your services over your competitors. Okay, so guys, why I actually wanted to bring this topic up right now is to talk about unity. Okay, how to create wholesome designs or branding for your UI designs. Now, unity is a very, very important design principle. As you can see on the screen right now, I have an example of a UI design where unity is used really, really well. Now, there are multiple images, different photos on the screen, but they all feel like they are the same set. They're part of the same set. They're part of the same website. That is because of the consistency and the unity in the design. If you notice the photos, all of them are monochrome, but of course, there is a shade of blue used over there. The text is all in the same font. The subtitles are all in the same font. And of course, the titles on the left are all in the same font. And there is a blue section towards the left. Okay. So yeah, this is a beautiful example of how to use unity. Okay, now again, now bringing up the whole Coca-Cola example again, what I want to tell you guys is Coca-Cola has some amazing attention to detail when it comes to design, and they show a lot of unity across all of their products. Even if they're selling merchandise, you will get t-shirts and hoodies that look like they're part of the same set. This is beautiful when it comes to understanding how unity works. Now, the next concept that I want to talk about is emphasis, basically deciding what stands out and what doesn't stand out in your web page. If you ever visited the Apple website, you guys will know that Apple is an absolute master at emphasis. The iPhone SE page is a beautiful example of this. When you go to the iPhone SE page, what you notice pretty simply is that the product is on the pedestal. The first thing that you see is the product. The product is on the pedestal. It is emphasized. Apple puts a lot of effort into their products, and the first thing that you see is the iPhone SE. Emphasis is a key design principle. Okay, now guys, I want to talk to you about the power of design. The power of design, which is absolutely essential to UI design. And the first concept that I want to explore, and like the only concept I want to explore right now, is how design shapes your perception. So guys, I have a question to ask you right now. Okay, I have two shampoo bottles on the screen. Okay, so which one do you think is more expensive? Tell me which one you think is more expensive, the one on the left or the one on the right. All right, I'm going to wait for a second for all of your answers. Okay. Yes, exactly. So a lot of you guys are sending across your messages right now. I want to let you guys know that yes, in fact, the one on the left does seem more expensive even to me. But the important thing to note over here is both of them are the same product. Both of them are the same product. If you look at the design closely, you will see that the name of the product is the same. The title is the same. They have a bearded man on the bottle over there. The name of the sub, the everything, it's the same product, but the design is different. Guys, if you didn't realize that this was the same product, drop a wow into the chat box right now and let me know that you found this fact amazing. You need to understand that yes, design shapes perception. If you have a product, if you have a service, you can increase the value of your product or of your service using the power of design. Okay, using the power of design. All right, so guys, on that note,